Hello everyone, welcome to this video. This is going to be an introduction to the unit BSS071-3, Business in an International Environment. We're going to cover the purpose of the unit, the learning outcomes, the assessments, as well as how the unit is going to run. It is going to run in a bit of a different way. We're going to have a week-by-week study guide. There is going to be quite a lot of activities. There is also going to be a prize. There's going to be points assigned to the activities from the study guide, and we are going to use that to allow you guys to keep track of your progress and also keep track of the various topics that need to be covered. But if we start with the purpose of the unit itself, and looking particularly at the learning outcomes. So these are the learning outcomes that we need to be able to demonstrate that you've achieved at the required level. And since this is your final year, it will be at level 6. We're looking at two specific outcomes. So the first outcome is relating to knowledge and understanding. So you need to understand the structure of international trade as well as the various flows. So that's going to involve an understanding of globalization, as well as understanding the principles underpinning international businesses and how they both expand but also operate within the international arena. Now that looks like a collection of buzzwords and technical terms, but really what it boils down to is that we need to develop everyone's understanding of how businesses operate within an international arena. So that's not just looking at business law or not just looking at individual business activities such as international marketing or international HRM, but also situating that, so placing that within the international arena. So that really does mean that we have to understand how globalization operates, how various international actors operate within the international arena. So that involves companies, supranational entities, trade blocs, supernatural organizations like the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, international INGOs, the diaspora, so how collections and groups of people operate across borders as well. So it is much broader than just looking at how businesses operate within specific fields. It involves really understanding the international arena as a whole, and I would highlight that as a key term that we're going to be focusing on throughout this unit. It is a very, very changing time. So a lot of things in the international arena are very fluid at the moment and have been over the last 5 or 10 years. There's a lot of very dynamic trends occurring at the moment, a lot of configuration and reconfiguration of existing flows. It is not a particularly stable time for international politics or for international businesses. Things like the rise of Trump, the rise of fascist-leaning movements and tendencies in various countries, which are also in some part quite isolationist, that will have lots of knock-on impacts. We've seen that with things like the Huawei case and tensions over between the US and China, and we have lots of other examples of that as well. So it is a very dynamic area, and it does involve more than just memorizing theories and models. It is going to require us to be very critical and also develop a broad knowledge base as well. The second learning outcome is relating to skills and abilities. So we need to demonstrate that you're able to both understand but also apply appropriate tools and techniques. So we're going to do this through the assessments to actually handle and recommend appropriate strategies for particular international business situations. And we're going to do this in both the first and second assessment. So as well as the broader trends and configuration of the international arena, we also want to look at specific tools and techniques that can be used. That gives us a nice way to discuss the assessment points, because a lot of those tools and techniques are going to be directly centered in the assessments. There are no exams for this unit. We just have 2 written assessments. There's a portfolio of individual portfolio papers, and that's going to be due in week 6, and that's weighed at 40%. And the second assessment is an orthodox business report, an individual business report, which is going to be due in week 13. So that's going to be the week after the end of teaching. There's going to be 12 weeks of teaching with the Easter break in between. And then the week after week 13, you're going to have the submission for your second assessment. You will find obviously the assessment briefs on the Brio show. If they are not up there at the moment, they will be up there by the end of the first week. And it is obviously important that you go through and read through them carefully. We are also going to have structured points within the study guide for us to discuss and to raise questions and so on about the assessment. So it will be something that we'll be looking at during our live seminar sessions. But please do make sure ahead of those sessions you do read through the assessment briefs, make notes, and come to those sessions with questions that we can discuss. And lastly, for this session or this section, just looking at the unit topics, and you'll see that they are split between broader critical looks at the international environment and the international arena, as well as specific smaller looks at particular functions within international businesses and how they operate within those functions. So for the first 6 weeks of the unit, it's fairly broad. We're looking at legal systems, political systems, as well as culture. So 3 big components of understanding differences between countries and understanding dimensions of difference between international markets. Looking at country selection and entry modes, so exactly how organizations select new countries to expand into, as well as how they enter those particular markets. That's going to be of particular importance to your second assessment. Then also looking at forex and corruption, which is coupled with our look at ethics. So we are going to have a significant portion of the course dedicated to looking at ethical situations, not least because international businesses are very much operating within what can quickly become quite murky ethical territory, lots of critiques, and therefore we are going to apply a critical look and a critical lens at those particular areas. In the second half of the unit, we are going to cover some of the technical aspects of how international businesses operate, so looking at international supply chains and supply networks, looking at regional integration, which is going to be of obvious interest in our post-Brexit era, and looking at how exactly customs unions and single markets and integrated economies actually operate. Looking at the global south, which is a term which I prefer, but we are going to have a debate on how to discuss countries that are sometimes called third world countries, sometimes called developing countries. As I said, I really do strongly prefer the term global south, but that's because of my understanding and academic position, and we are going to have a debate and looking at what those terms reveal about our understanding or our perspective on international affairs and the international arena, looking at marketing and HRM within international organizations. So there's very specific challenges for international businesses when it comes to marketing and human resource management. And then lastly, we're going to finish by looking at emerging trends and how international business, as well as the international arena more generally, is rapidly changing, and what major trends we can actually identify and spot. So that's given us an overview of the unit and what kind of areas we're going to be tackling. And I want to move on to how the unit is going to practically run. As I said before, we are going to be doing something different. We have had a year of the pandemic to try and adapt to a hybrid delivery model. So even though the unit is a 30 credit unit, you guys should only be doing this unit and your dissertation unit. So it's typically scheduled for 4 hours a week of lectures and seminars. We are going to be doing something different, and we're only going to be having a 2-hour live seminar session, but this doesn't mean that you guys have got 2 hours where you can be free to do other stuff and to enjoy yourselves. This is the last 6 months of your degrees. It is going to be intense and there is lots of stuff to cover. But we are going to try and do it in an organized way. And the key to this is going to be the study guide. So even though you only have 2 hours of live seminars, which at the moment are going to be online seminars that may change as we move through the semester, depending on the broader situation with the pandemic, although at this moment, just before the unit starts, it does look like there's a good chance that we may be online for the entire semester, unfortunately. But we are going to be using a week-by-week study guide to organize our activities. What we cannot do is simply think that turning up to the 2-hour live seminars is sufficient. That is necessary, but there's lots of other stuff to do as well. So every week what you guys will need to do is go onto the Brio Shell and you have your weekly block. So in this case, what you can see is the weekly block for the second week, political and legal systems. And at the very top, you'll see a document that's labeled start here and then the week number. So this is going to be the study guide for that particular week. And it's something that needs to be looked at right before you do anything else for the week, before you watch any of the pre-recorded lecture videos, before you do any of the activities or any of the reading. Please start by looking at the study guide for that week. And what that will have, it will have all of the activities, everything you need to do with 5 specific categories or 5 specific columns here. We're going to have the category of activity. So there are going to be 3 distinct categories. There will be some things which are labeled must do, some things which are labeled should do, and lastly some things which are labeled aspire to do. It's pretty self-explanatory. The things which are labeled must do have to be done. They should be considered to be part of the 4 core hours a week of the unit. So you have 2 hours as part of the live seminars, and then you have additional 2 hours which is going to be a mix of videos and activities which really must be done. If you don't do these, you'll have essentially nothing to discuss in the live seminars and you won't be able to contribute, neither will any of the stuff we do in the seminars make any sense. We are not going to be waiting for or re-explaining stuff or giving lectures again in the seminars. You have the the pre-recorded lecture videos, and you have the pre-must-do activities to prepare for the seminars, and those are a prerequisite. Things which are labelled should do are, important to do. However, depending on your workload that week or the topics you're interested in, there may be a couple of weeks that you decide that you're going to spend your time doing something else, perhaps working on your assessments, or perhaps catching up on work from previous weeks. So I wouldn't expect you to necessarily do the should do activities for all of the 12 weeks, but for the majority of the 12 weeks, the should do activities should be done. And lastly, the aspire to do activities are there for stretch activities. So if you have a particular interest in the topic for that week, or you find that you really want to master the material or master that area, or you want to explore deeper, then you have the additional stretch activities for aspire to do. You'll also, for each activity, have a section for when those activities should be done. And quite simply, some activities need to be done before the seminar. I understand that this week we don't have any because it's the first week, and I want you guys to gently ease into this rhythm rather than hitting you with tons of stuff to do before the seminar. But usually from week 2 onwards, there will be videos to watch and activities to do before the seminar. And then you have some activities which can be done anytime that week. So it's not particularly key that you do them beforehand. With things like the quizzes, you may want to do them after the seminar's finished. Then you'll have a description and instructions on the what to do section. And you'll have these 2 additional sections at the end of output and points. Now, output will specify what output should be produced at the end. There may be obviously a quiz that you do. It may be a worksheet that needs to be completed and uploaded. It may be a discussion board which you have to post on. So quite a lot of the activities will have specific outputs that you need to evidence and actually produce, and they'll have points attached as well. So anything with an output will generally have points attached, whether it's 20, 10, 30, 40 points. I want to stress that these are not connected to your assessments. They don't contribute towards your final grade, but it is a way for us to keep track of your progress through the unit, keep track of exactly how well you're doing and whether you need some additional help or a one-to-one meeting. And also it's fun. It's going to be a feature throughout the 12 weeks. I am going to be keeping track of the points, and we will have a nominal prize. Now, I'm not a particularly rich person. I wish all of the money you guys pay in fees was coming to the teaching staff, but that very much is not the case. However, there will be some sort of nominal prize. I haven't quite decided. I'm quite open to suggestions. But that will be for the person on the unit who gets the highest points total from all of the 12 weeks. So that's the study guide. Make sure you guys do follow the study guide. You do open the study guide for every week at the beginning, and then you'll always have a clear idea of what needs to be done. So as I said before, one of the first things that will be on the study guide every week will be pre-recorded lecture videos. These are going to be how we cover major new concepts and theories. So if you really are thinking, well, if I turn up to the live seminar sessions, I'll understand the theories and concepts I need to do the assessments, that very much is not going to be the case. We're going to use these seminars to refine our understanding and critically explore topics, but for the introduction to major concepts and theories, you are going to find those in the pre-recorded lecture videos. We also have a core text, international business, and there will be specified reading and chapters identified to support the topics every week. Those are generally down as should do activities. You should be reading along and dipping into the textbook every week, looking at the topics that we're covering, but that is support material. So particularly if you struggle to understand a concept or a theory in one of the pre-recorded lecture videos, your first point of call really should be the textbook reading to help you develop your understanding. There are going to be a lot of activities which use discussion boards. So there may be an activity asking you to read through a particular article and then to respond to some critical questions by writing a post on the discussion board. Please do join in the discussion. You don't just have to put your particular post on and then stop, read through other colleagues' posts and respond, debate, argue. There is a respect code. Some of the topics we cover on this unit are fairly controversial. They are fairly critical. We are looking at some deeply political and significantly murky ethical issues. We don't want anyone to censor their opinion or not to say what their actual perspective or opinion is, but we want to do so in a way that respects each other and make sure that everyone is comfortable engaging in these discussions. As well as discussion board activities, we also have a lot of worksheet activities as well. So these are going to be straightforward. You download a worksheet document, usually a Word file. You complete the worksheet and then you can submit using a dedicated worksheet submission link, EOC, attached to every worksheet activity. And lastly, there are going to be weekly quizzes as well. These are really important to help assess your learning. So you'll find that as you move through, because we're covering such a large range of complex topics, that doing the weekly quiz, perhaps after you've finished all the other activities in a study guide, it will be just a good way for you to get some feedback on how well you've covered the material that week. As well as being fun, they do contribute directly towards your points total after all.